Hi everyone, Grant for the Flame Learning channel. In this video, you'll learn about selective grading through a 3D track. So you're able to analyze the movement of an object based on the 3D camera move, and then grade that object using a combination of masks and selectives. So you'll cover 3D tracking in the Image Toolset, preparing the tools to grade through a 3D track, creating the 3D tracked mask and applying it to the selective, and finally performing the selective grade on the inside and outside of the mask. Now before we begin, I just want to mention that grading through a 3D track is possible in either the Image Toolset or Action 3D Compositor. Here you have a cookie shot in the timeline, and you would like to highlight one of the cookies through grading. Switching to the effects environment will give you the Image Timeline Effects toolset. Now in preparation to perform a 3D track, hide the Explorer with Ctrl Swipe and display the image schematic in a 2-up view. Now the grading workflow is generally 2D based, where you grade the whole image as well as perform selective isolated grading using a series of keys and masks. The masks in particular can be tracked using point or planar tracking. This is all performed at the image surface level, which is 2D, and this is indicated by the node layout in the schematic. To use 3D tracking as part of your grading workflow, you need a 3D environment that understands camera movement. Well, in this case, you're in luck. The Image Toolset is based on the Action Compositing architecture, which means the 3D environment is already there. Just switch to the Setup menu and choose the Display tab. Click the Show button to display the 3D camera. Now that the camera is available, add a camera analysis to set up the 3D track. Next, toggle the viewport to the Camera Analysis Media view and set the resolution to 1 before performing the analysis. With the analysis complete, you can check the 2D tracking points in the image view and then toggle to the Camera Analysis Scene view to review the 3D point cloud. Moving around the point cloud, you should be able to identify the cookies in the shot. Now it is not mandatory, but I like to identify the horizontal plane in the shot. So press Ctrl and select a bunch of points on the cookie. When you go to the Refine menu and set the ground plane, this reorientates the 3D scene to match the camera's original angle. Obviously, if there was a proper ground, you'd define that as the ground plane. The second non-mandatory step that may be helpful is to choose the region around the area you will be masking and set that as the origin. This should make it easier to place objects since these points are the center of the 3D space. The last step of the 3D tracking process is to toggle to the Camera Analysis camera view and choose the point or points you'd like to track for the mask. Go to the Analysis menu and convert the selection into a Scene Tracker axis. If the axis is not aligned to your liking, select the axis node in the image schematic and adjust the rotational properties to match. So this completes the 3D track, and now you need to adjust the node flow graph to work and grade in 3D, as opposed to grading and working in 2D. When grading with a 3D environment, the grading needs to be applied to the output of the 3D camera. This is different to traditional grading, where your grades are applied directly on your image. So let's rearrange the pipeline to reassign the selectives to the camera, as well as incorporate the 3D track in the grading process. So disconnect the selective from the image surface and create a new connection from the 3D camera. This quick gesture applies the selective grading to the camera output. And just like the image surface, you can add as many selectives to the camera as you require. Now switch back to your result view, and let's look at how the 3D track has affected the image surface. As expected with any 3D composition, The camera is moving, but the image surface is static. This gives the appearance that the surface is moving in 3D space. To fix this, the image surface needs to be locked and moving with the 3D camera. So choose the Camera Analysis node and create a compensation axis. Connect this node to your image. When you scrub the time bar, the image is now locked to the camera and is unaffected by the 3D track. Another recommendation is to push the image surface behind the point cloud. The reason for doing this is to prevent the selective masks from intersecting or going behind the background image. So switch to the perspective view and move around the scene to see the 3D camera and image surface. To push the background further away from the camera, go to the Image Node bin and drag out a new axis node. Pressing Shift, you can drop it into the connection under the Camera Compensation axis. Next, go to the Axes menus and enable the Auto-Scale on all transform changes. When you start pushing the image in Z-space, as it moves further away from the 3D camera, the resolution will be scaled to match the frame. So looking back at the result view, the image looks the same, but is much further away from the 3D camera. So that's how to set up the image pipeline to grade using the 3D track. The next step is to create the mask and then use it to grade with the selective. To create a G-mask that is aligned with the 3D track, you need to select the tracker axis that you created earlier when you were working in camera analysis. To hide the axis plane before you start masking, go to the Axis Display menu and turn it off. Now add a G-mask link to the selected tracker axis. You can start drawing your mask around your chosen cookie. When you scrub the time bar, the mask will be locked to the 3D track. To apply a bit of softness to the mask's edge, go to the mask's controls and click Add. You can adjust the offset either using the slider or softness point on the mask. Now to apply the mask on the selective, switch to the G-mask link in the Tools pull-down menu and drag a connection from the G-mask to the selective. This associates the G-mask to the selective, and you can see a thumbnail of the matte in the selective node. Now that the mask is associated to the selective, you can start grading. Choose the master grade of the selective and start adjusting the grade. Now that's starting to look good, but let's say you wanted to grade the outside of the 3D tracked mask. So click the plus icon and choose another master grade from the file browser. This time, set the master grade to grade on the outside of the mask. Drop the saturation and the offset, and adjust the lift trackball. So that's grading in and out of the 3D tracked mask in a single selective. As a final tip, if you wish to blur the edges of the mask a bit more, just select the G-mask node and increase the blur slider. To see the selective matte, you can toggle the selective views. Just remember to switch to the result view with F4 to see the final result. I'd like to reiterate that this whole time you've been working in the Image Toolset, but grading through a 3D track is available in the Action 3D Compositor. Please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel and click the bell to be notified for future videos. Comments, feedback and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. And thanks for watching.